Who are the most hated characters in One Piece? Well, that's exactly what we'll find out in today's video by giving each character a percentage of how much people hate them. For example, everyone's favorite clown, Buggy, is only 10% hated. Why? Because people love him. Well, at first, he was just an annoying, self-absorbed villain who tried to act tough. And when Luffy kicked him in his family jewels, everyone cheered. But as I said, Buggy's now one of the most loved characters in the series. And that's because he's absolutely hilarious. And he actually purely survives on luck. It's become a running joke that somehow, someway, he always makes it out on top, even though he's incredibly weak. And honestly, at this rate, it wouldn't shock me if he somehow got his hands on the One Piece itself. Moving on, we have Bellamy, who used to be super hated, and for good reason. But now he's only 20% hated. Back when we first met him, he mocked and beat Luffy and Zoro, and eventually even Cricket. So when Luffy took him down with one punch, that was truly satisfying. But then during Dressrosa, we saw a whole different side of him. Sure, he was still blindly loyal to Flamingo, but he showed Luffy respect, so Bellamy had clearly grown. After his emotional fight with Luffy and Flamingo eventually being defeated, he actually became friends with Luffy and the Straw Hats. And after all that, he retired from piracy and started fresh. So looking back, Bellamy wasn't just an arrogant idiot, he was stuck in a toxic, manipulative relationship with Flamingo. And his redemption arc showed us he's more than that. Next up, we've actually got Usopp, who's gotten 30% in the hate meter. Because, let's face it, he can be super annoying. He's the guy who hides behind everyone else when danger shows up. And during the Merry situation, he disrespected his own captain, as he was so caught up in his own pain that he totally ignored Luffy's. Plus, his character feels stuck, like we're all waiting for that big power-up that never comes. But even with all that, Usopp's still loved by tons of fans. Sure, he's scared of everything, but that's what makes him brave. He still risks it all for his crew, even when he's terrified. Fighting through fear? Well, that's real courage. Now we've got Sabo's adoptive brother, Sterry, who's 45% hated. And honestly, he's one of the most punchable characters in the series. After getting adopted into a noble family, he grew up spoiled and full of himself. And by the time we see him again as the king of Goa Kingdom during the Reverie, he's somehow even worse. He's obsessed with power, scared of literally everything, and treats everyone around him like trash. But here's the thing, most people just don't care about him enough to hate him more, which is why his hate percentage isn't higher. Moving on, we've got the sneaky backstabber Apu, who is 50% hated. Sure, betraying Kid and Hawkins to team up with Kaido was a real shady move, but let's be real, the main reason people hate him is because he's just so annoying. That cocky attitude, constant gloating, and his whole DJ shtick, it's the worst. The random screams and weird noises he makes, beyond irritating. And his musical tone fruit attacks, somehow they make him even more unbearable. Honestly, it feels like Apu was designed to get under everyone's skin, and guess what? It worked. Next up, Flamingo, who's actually only 55% hated. Now, this guy is ruthless. He killed his own dad, his brother, took over Dressrosa, and ruined countless lives like it was nothing. But, despite all of these horrific things, people still love him. His backstory helps you understand why he's so messed up, even if it doesn't excuse anything he's done. He's a straight-up monster, but he's also a super complex villain that is incredibly well written. The way he actually cares for his crew and family in his own twisted way adds so much depth to his character. Plus, let's be real, Flamingo's got style, so yeah, he's just too cool to hate, I guess. Another character who's killed innocent people but is actually on the side of the world government is Rob Luchi, and he's 60% hated. This guy's a total scumbag. He straight up told Spondam he works for the world government just so he can kill people without consequences. Like, who even says that? And his backstory? He wiped out 500 innocent people without a second thought. After the time skip, he somehow got even worse, still working for the world nobles and still jumping at any chance to kill. Despite all this, Luchi's fan base is pretty strong. People like his cool and calm vibe. Still, morally, he's as bad as they come. Moving on, we've got Hod Jones, who's 65% hated. This guy is straight up evil. He doesn't just hate humans, he takes it to a whole other level. He even killed Otohime, just because she was trying to bring peace between humans and fishmen. He also used human slaves as pawns in his fights, which shows just how messed up and heartless he is. But honestly, he's not higher on the hate list because, well, let's be real, most people barely remember him. Fishman Island was an absolute pain, so a lot of fans probably just skimmed through it and moved on. Now, the fake Luffy, Demolo Black, who's actually 68% hated, because this guy's an absolute joke. Black and his crew posed as Luffy and the Straw Hats and tried to recruit people. He then even had the audacity to think he could take on the real Luffy when he finally returned. But yeah, he got knocked out by Luffy's haki pretty quickly. Then he got crushed by Sentomaru when the Marines showed up. His whole act was cringy, but that said, some people did find the fake Straw Hats pretty funny. Now let's talk about Foxy, who's gotten 70% in the hate meter. Why? Because he's just so annoying. And yeah, that's it. Moving up 2% in the hate meter to 72%, we've got Squard. This guy literally stabbed Whitebeard, his own captain, during the Marineford War. Like, what? Whitebeard saved him, treated him like family, and Squard just instantly believed Akainu's lies, thinking Whitebeard had betrayed them. Instead of trusting the man who gave him everything, he tried to kill him. Even though Whitebeard forgave him because he's a legend, Squard's betrayal was unforgivable, and it definitely had an impact on Whitebeard's end. So yeah, he's definitely one of the most disliked characters in the series. Next up, the mad scientist Caesar Clown, who's 74% hated. Caesar is a twisted, cruel scientist, and the way he experiments on kids, tricking them with poisonous chemicals disguised as candy, that's some next-level evil. Plus, he's the one behind the creation of the smile fruits, which caused tons of suffering. Even when he's caught and forced to work with the Straw Hats, it's all for his own survival. Now we've got Queen, who's 76% hated. From the moment he shows up, he's loud and obnoxious. And one of the worst things he did was use his ice virus to try and wipe out not only the Straw Hats, but also his own crew and the samurai. He didn't care who got caught in the crossfire, not even his own crew members, as long as his twisted plan worked. What makes him even worse is that he genuinely enjoys causing pain and suffering. It's one thing to be a villain, but that sadistic nature? Yeah, that's enough to make him absolutely hated. A character we don't know much about yet, but still is 78% hated, is Figureland Garling. Again, although we don't know much about Garling right now, we do know this. He killed Miosgard, the one decent celestial dragon, just because he saved Shirahoshi from becoming Sharlos' slave. That alone is unforgivable. But as he's a fairly new character, he's not higher on the list. Another character who's still a big mystery, Imu. But Imu is at 80% in the hate meter, and rightfully so, because what we do know is enough to make you want to throw something. Imu is the true leader of the world government, secretly controlling everything from behind the scenes, and Imu's been around for centuries, causing destruction without a second thought, like erasing entire kingdoms like Lulusia just to silence a rebellion and to try and take out Sabo. Moving on, we've got Charlotte Flampy, who's 84% hated. She's the textbook definition of a spoiled brat, and at first she's obsessed with Katakuri and desperate to be his favorite little sister. But during the Luffy vs. Katakuri fight, she pulled a dirty move that made everyone hate her. She used her blowgun to mess up their one-on-one duel, injuring Luffy from the sidelines. Then she had the nerve to laugh at him, calling him pathetic, even though he was fighting like a champ against her insanely strong brother. But what truly made us hate her? When Flampy saw Katakuri's real face, she mocked him for his looks, calling him ugly and laughing with her little crew. It was such a low blow, and it showed just how shallow and childish she really is. Now, let's talk about Blackbeard, as he's 85% hated, and yeah, he deserves it. This guy is the ultimate backstabber, and he'll betray anyone to get what he wants. He straight up killed his own crewmate Thatch just to steal the Yami Yami no Mi, which was his plan from the start when he joined Whitebeard's crew. And if that wasn't bad enough, he handed Ace over to the Marines, which led to Ace's death, breaking all of our hearts. And, of course, Blackbeard didn't stop there. He turned on Whitebeard himself, ultimately killing his former captain and then stealing his devil fruit powers. But here's the thing, some people actually like him. They see Blackbeard as the ultimate pirate doing whatever it takes to rise to the top, which is why he doesn't get a higher percentage on the hate meter. Now, one of the top 3 officers of the Don Quixote pirates, Diamante, and he's 88% hated. This guy is the definition of messed up. He's not only sadistic and twisted, but he also shows zero remorse for his actions. One of his most unforgivable moments was when he killed Rebecca's mother and then had the audacity to taunt Rebecca about it. That's just next-level evil. Then, when he faced Kiros, he showed his true colors as a coward. And the worst part is how he seemed to enjoy the thought of killing Rebecca in front of her father. He really is a sick individual. So yeah, Diamante's cruelty and cowardice make him one of the most hated characters. At 89% hated, we've got one of the OG villains, Arlong. He first came and took over Nami's village and forced the villagers to pay insane amounts of tribute just to stay alive. And of course, he killed Bellamy in a heartbreaking way. But what really pushes Arlong to a whole new level of hatred is how he manipulated Nami, making her believe she could save her village by working for him. So, for years, she slaved away, only for Arlong to reveal his true intentions. He was never going to let her village free. The moment Nami realizes she's been tricked, and watching her emotional breakdown is one of the most gut-wrenching moments in the series. But it just made his eventual demise that much sweeter. Watching Luffy take him down was so satisfying because he truly deserved it. Reaching characters that are 90% hated, we first got Vinsmoke Judge, who gets the prize of Worst Father of the Century. His obsession with creating the perfect soldiers is so extreme that he doesn't even see his own children as humans. They're just products for his military goals. Sanji, in particular, gets the worst of it, being treated like an outcast and rejected simply for not fitting his father's idea of perfect. What's even more messed up is how Judge locked Sanji up and punished him for literally having a heart. Judge only saw him as an embarrassment. Then, years later, after all of that, he tries to pull Sanji back into his toxic family, forcing him into a marriage with Pudding just to further his political agenda by threatening the lives of Zeph and the Straw Hats. He just doesn't care about anyone but himself and his twisted vision. He's a truly despicable father and human being. Moving on, we've got Akainu, who's 92% hated. And yeah, it's easy to see why. The biggest reason? He killed Ace right in front of Luffy. Which of course was a moment that left all fans heartbroken, and it's something that's impossible to forgive. Oh, and don't forget the Ohara incident, where he literally obliterated an entire evacuation ship filled with innocent people just because he was suspicious about the possibility of scholars escaping. That kind of cold-heartedness is just beyond anything anyone could justify. And during the Marineford War, Akainu didn't even bat an eye at killing his own soldiers when they tried to run as they were scared for their lives. So yeah, he's absolutely one of the most hated characters. Next up, another officer of the Don Quixote pirates. This time, it's Trebol, who is 94% hated. Everything about Trebol is absolutely disgusting, and honestly, just hearing him talk is enough to make you want to punch the screen. But what makes him truly despicable is his role in shaping Doflamingo into the monster he became. The fact that Trebol was the one who gave Doflamingo the gun to shoot his father and his string fruit while manipulating him into thinking he was chosen makes Trebol the true villain of the Don Quixote pirates. Oh, and his fighting style? Ugh, don't even get me started on that. His gooey powers are gross and he uses them in the most disgusting ways possible. Honestly, he's a character that's just completely unlikable from start to finish. Now, Kanjuro, who deservedly is 97% hated. For the longest time, Kanjuro was seen as a loyal, trusted member of the 9 Red Scabbards, fighting alongside his comrades for the sake of Oden and the Kozuki family. Everyone believed in him. But then, boom! He had been working with Orochi all along, feeding them information, sabotaging their plans, and essentially sealing Oden's fate. The fact that he was the reason Oden's final plan to kill Kaido failed? That's just unforgivable. And it wasn't just as simple as a betrayal, it was all personal. He captured Momonosuke and tried to kill his old friends, the people who had trusted him for years. So, Kanjuro's actions have absolutely made him one of the most despised characters. Reaching one of the most hated characters in the series, we've got the Elder Saint Saturn, and he's 98% hated. For starters, he played a major role in the Ohara incident, ordering the destruction of an entire island and its people just to keep the truth about the Void Century buried. Then there's the horrifying stuff he's done in the name of science. Bonnie's powers? Yeah, they came from Saturn's experiments, but they came at the cost of unimaginable pain and suffering. Oh, and when Kuma tried to save Bonnie, Saturn forced him into a heartbreaking deal. Kuma had to give up his freedom, his mind, and his humanity, turning himself into a weapon for the world government, all to save Bonnie from Saturn's horrific experiments. Saturn even forbade Kuma from ever seeing Bonnie again, threatening to enslave her if he disobeyed. So, Saturn isn't just cruel, he's absolutely heartless. Now, reaching 99% in the hate meter, we've got Spondam, who's easily one of the most hated characters in the series, and it's not hard to see why. First off, he's weak, cowardly, and had no business being the leader of CP9. The only reason he even got the job is straight-up nepotism, thanks to his dad, Spondine. But what makes him really hated is how he treated Robin during the Ennis Lobby arc. He didn't just capture her, he dragged her around in chains and even beat her whenever she dared to speak. That's just straight-up vile. And let's not forget the Buster Call. This guy ordered a freaking buster call to wipe out not only the Straw Hats but also his own people, just so he could climb the ladder in the world government. And as if that wasn't enough, Spondam's also the one who took Tom away to be executed at Enies Lobby. So yeah, he deserves every bit of the hate he gets. Moving on, we've got Orochi, and he's actually got 99.99% hate. Orochi betrayed the Kozuki clan and sold out Wano to Kaido, turning what was once a beautiful and thriving country into an absolute nightmare. Under his rule, the people of Wano were starving, suffering, and dying from poisoned water and land, all while Orochi enjoyed a life of luxury. And he knew the people of Wano were suffering, but instead of doing anything to help, he thought their misery was depressing to look at. So what did he do? He forced starving citizens to eat defective smile fruits, cursing them to smile and laugh uncontrollably, even as they were dying inside. Like, seriously, how twisted is that? And to top it all off, Orochi is a total coward. He acts tough, talks big, and throws his power around like he's untouchable. And finally, the character that is 100% hated, well, you can probably already guess who it is. The one and only Saint Charlos. Being a celestial dragon already makes him one of the most punchable characters in the series, but Charlos takes it to the next level. Not only because how disgusting he looks with snot coming out of his nose, but because he's arrogant, entitled, and treats everyone like they're beneath him. Like at Sabaody, Charlos casually shot an innocent man in the street just because he wanted to take the guy's wife for himself. Then during the reverie, he had the audacity to try and kidnap Shirahoshi in front of everyone because, well, he wanted her. To Charlos, anyone who isn't a celestial dragon isn't even human. They're just objects he can use and throw away however he wants. He's just an incredibly despicable character that shows how warped the world government really is. So whenever he gets what's coming to him, all One Piece fans celebrate. Who do you hate the most out of these characters? Maybe there's someone else you hate even more? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and watch this video next.